All right, in this video, we're going to take a little bit of a step back from the UConn series on all the various players coming back and take a look at a graduating player, that being Paige Bueckers, how her debut season in the WNBA is going. Of course, this is YouTube, so I think I'm legally obligated to compare Paige Bueckers to Caitlin Clark. We'll take a little bit of a look, but I promise I won't stay too long on that, as I also plan to take a deep dive on the Dallas Wings numbers and the players surrounding Paige and her overall numbers. Before we start, if you enjoy the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and give the video a like, as it really helps. Again, it's been a bit of an effort getting out content. It turns out 7 people living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. It's a bit of a difficult task finding a quiet area to do the voiceovers. I'm doing my best. I appreciate your patience. All right, let's get into this. So when we last left off talking about Paige Bueckers, she was completing her UConn legacy, winning a championship and avoiding the mantra of being the best UConn player not to win a championship. Of course, during the course of the season, it was Paige is overrated, Paige is overrated. Even after winning the championship, some were still not satisfied, and the only reason Paige won a championship was due to Sarah Strong. And even when Paige did have a good game or a good series of games, the argument always was, well, she's old and playing against little kiddies. Of course, it's a grown woman playing against kids. That's why she had success. And when she goes to the WNBA with talented athletes, she is going to get exposed. And well, for back to sports, Paige Bueckers is, well, I'll let Denny Green say. Let's substitute Chicago for Paige Bueckers.
The Bears are who we thought they were. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Thanks, Denny. Yes, I will crown Paige Bueckers WNBA Rookie of the Year for 2025. And she is what we thought she was, which was a really great player that's unbelievably efficient and makes others better. At the recording of this video, Paige Bueckers is 12 games into her WNBA career, averaging 17.7 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and she's shooting 45.7% from the floor, 30.8% from 3, and her effective field goal shooting percentage is 49.1%. And then, of course, there's the obvious comparison to Caitlin Clark, who's 8 games in because this season, due to her quad injury, and she's averaging 19.8 points, 5.4 rebounds, 8.9 assists, and shooting 40% from the floor, 31% from 3, and also has a effective field goal shooting percentage of 49.6%. And obviously, because it's YouTube, you have to say one is better than the other, but really the truth is it's almost like ice cream, chocolate and vanilla. They're both good. It just depends on what you like better. But much like Denny Green said, they are who we thought they were. And in college, they were both ridiculously good shooters. If you take a look at their shot charts, they are just ridiculous for both of them. And this is obviously translated to the WNBA, and it always was going to. The difference between them and college is what I see the most was their usage rate in college and their turnover rate. So Paige, because she was at UConn and was going to be with much better players, her usage rate was much lower. Freshman year, it was 24%, sophomore year, 23%. Junior year, 29%, and senior year, 28%, compared to Clark, whose usage was freshman year, 37%, again, 37% her sophomore year, 36% her junior year, and 40% her senior year. And consequently, she had a higher turnover rate with percentages of 18% in her freshman year, 17%, sophomore, 15% her junior, and 15% her senior year, versus Bueckers, who only turned the ball over 13% her freshman year, 12% sophomore, junior year 8.3%, and senior year only 7.8%. Now, for me, if I was forced to choose between the two, I would go Bueckers. I like efficiency. That's where I lean towards. I lived in Houston through the James Harden years and high usage, and he was an efficient player, but my God, the usage rate. So I tend to go, I like players that have a lower usage and use the team more and have an impact that way. And to be fair, Clark's usage rate is not the highest in the WNBA. So her usage is 28.6%, which makes her eighth in the WNBA. Copper, Nafisa Collier, Asia Wilson, Satu Sabli, and Bree Hall. Well, Bree Hall doesn't have many minutes, but anyway, those major players are higher than Caitlin Clark is. So Caitlin Clark is not a disaster. To be clear, I know that on usage rate. And Paige Bueckers, who sits at number 35 with a usage rate of 22.1%, that will go up in time, obviously, especially if Arike Agumawale doesn't re-sign next season. But again, as I'm at pains to outline, this is personal preference. If you're a Fever fan, and there are a lot of them, and a lot of Caitlin Clark fans, I know they enjoy seeing the show each night and what is she going to do and put on, and that's great, and I like watching it as well, and I'm happy that they're different players. I like that. I like variety. I grew up where you had a veer offense, you had a wishbone. It wasn't all just spread offense in college football in much the same way here. I like players that play in different ways, but my preference is obviously more towards Paige Bueckers, as I like that style of play. But I do have a couple of fears for Paige Bueckers. One is health. Can she stay healthy? She had her concussion and has recovered from that well, but that is always a bit of a lingering question with Paige Bueckers. The second question I have is the Dallas management, which I know angers Wings fans, but man, I had hoped that Curt Miller was going to be a vast improvement over Greg Bibb, but I am telling you, I'm a little bit nervous looking at his moves, as I don't think he got near enough for Satu Sabli, trading her off to Phoenix, and then they swapped that out. Cunningham, who they got back and sent to the Fever, and the big get from that was Nalissa Smith, who the Fever made clear that they were dumping. So it's just not enough, and she has not been good for Dallas. As Dallas is 5 points better on offense with her off the court, but in addition, they are 5 points better on defense, or give up 5 less points on defense when she's off the court as well. So that gives you around -10, which is not a good on-off number. But the other one that Miller's traded for that struggled is Dejanay Carrington, who's minus 19.8. And that's another Miller acquisition where he's had a past with her because he drafted her when he was with the Connecticut Sun. So, yeah, I'm going to trade for her, much like Chris Clanis, the coach, was basically his protege. So when he's looking for a coach, he's like, yeah, that's the guy because I mentored him. He's the perfect fit. And he's never coached. And he might turn into be a fine coach, but I don't like that way of sort of acquiring or running your front office. I've had something to do with you in the past, so therefore I'm going to bring you into my team. But even more damning than that is letting Carla Late, Dallas did not protect her. Greg Bibb drafted her the year before. It was a good draft pick. And for some reason, they did not protect her and let her go to the Valkyrie. And that was a really, really bad move, in my opinion. I can't see any explanation for it either. So I don't know if she said outright, I'm not going to Dallas and you need to leave me unprotected, but I would have held on to her or protected her under no uncertain terms. I would have let a lot of other players go before I would have let her go off to the Valkyrie. And to be clear, I am not suggesting that Curt Miller should be fired. You've hired him. The Dallas Wings management has. They have to give him time to see what he can do. I thought the Sparks made a big mistake in firing him 2 years into a rebuild. If this is the guy you trust, you sort of need to see how it plays out. But no doubt the new management does make me nervous and wonder, should Paige Bueckers have come back to UConn for a 5th year? Because in 2026, the Seattle Storm owned Los Angeles pick, and that's currently Number 2, because it combines the 2 years of their record, and that's how they work it out. So currently, the Storm have a 32.5% chance of landing the number 1 draft pick. In addition, Minnesota, who owns the swap rights to the Chicago Skies pick, they have a 17% chance of landing that first pick, and that might go up before this season is done because Chicago has looked pretty brutal so far. As well, Dallas does have a 32% chance, so maybe it was fate, and maybe she was always lined up to go to Dallas, and hopefully it works out. But man, it just that's the one downside when you get drafted by a franchise. You're placing your career in their hands on how they go about putting together a roster around you. Here's hoping that they put good players around Paige Bueckers, because with her game, she will take advantage of it. Now, here you go. Now it's time for your poison. I'm sure Caitlin Clark fans are going to give it to me. Anyway, your thoughts, your poison, and comments. It's all welcome. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great night.